Hello everyone, this is Ramon Rodriguez, head coach of Warrior Wrestling here in Palmview. We'd like to go ahead and invite everyone here in the Valley to come and get some wrestling. We're located in 910 East Veterans Boulevard, Suite 11. If you're a wrestler and you want to get a little bit more technique in your repertoire, you can go ahead and come with us. We have personal training for adults and we do offer classes for elementary all the way to high school. We have our doors open for anyone that wants to improve the wrestling. We teach folk style, freestyle, and Greco-Roman wrestling. Everything that's in Warrior Wrestling is wrestling centric. All our equipment is made for wrestling specific. Anything that'll give you resistance training to build the muscles for wrestling. We have a state-of-the-art facility. We're the only academy south of San Antonio for wrestling. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to bring more wrestling to the Valley so that we can compete at a state level and hopefully a national level. Now this training is from intermediate all the way up to pro fighting. We'd like to go ahead and invite everybody that's out there in the Valley to come inside and improve their wrestling. Anybody that wants to learn takedowns, anything like that, then go ahead and contact us.
Welcome to WTBS's MMA Tap Hour, where we are covering UFC 282 Yuri Prochazka versus Glover. Wait. That doesn't sound right, Ben. Actually, it's been scrapped. Cut the music. It's been scrapped. We got a new main event. And Ben, honestly, this card has been in danger from the start. 6 cancellations on this card for these fights. They've had to scrap together people who are fighting within the card to make this card happen. I'm glad it's happening. It's right before the end of the year, and we're going to get one more pay-per-view card before it's all said and done in December.
And one more title on the line for a vacant belt. Like you said, a lot of makeshift stuff has had to happen on this card. It was built really nicely to end the year with a big bang. It's definitely taking a hit. I'm over here contemplating, is this worth buying? Is this not worth buying? I've been purchasing all the UFC pay-per-views lately. I'm not sold on this one, to be honest. But, there is some good fights and there is some value here as far as betting lines.
Yeah. Well, you know what? With no further ado, let's get into the first fight we want to talk about. San Antonio's very own Alexander Hernandez versus Billy Quarantillo. We got a younger Hernandez coming in. He had a promising future that first, couple fights until he met, Donald Cowboy Cerrone. And after that fight, we kind of seen the real Alexander Hernandez stand up for the most part, and it's not been a good look. Let's go over his last 5, Ben. As you can see here, not the best form, a lot of red here, 3-2 in his last 5. What stands out here?
Yeah, I mean, the wins are against dudes that are really, not UFC caliber guys. Chris Gruetzemacher, towards the end of his career already, and Mike Breeden, probably not on the UFC roster anymore. But then you see him fight guys like, Renato Moicano, Thiago Moises, Drew Dober.
Not even the best either.
Right. Some of the guys that you would consider gatekeeper-ish type or, fringe top 15, top 10 guys. And, he loses. For the most part with him, he seems to have one, strong round in him. And then he tends to gas once he gets deeper into the fights. In the trenches, if you look at his build, a lot of muscle, and that muscle tends to, use more oxygen. I'm no doctor, but, that's A plus B equals C.
Yeah, so yeah. 1 plus 1 is equal 2 here.
Yeah, he will be gassed. I would say second, third round if he doesn't get Billy Q out of there early.
All right, let's look at the Billy Q's. 3-2. A loss to a guy who's no longer in the UFC. Shout out PFL's own Shane Burgos. What are we seeing here in these 5 fights for him, Billy Q? What kind of form is he in?
Yeah, we've seen him in a bunch of exciting fights. He's a really big pressure fighter. Hasn't fought the best competition until you get to Shane Burgos. Shane Burgos also not in the UFC, but we do know that he was, that top 5 caliber, top 10 caliber fighter for sure. So you lose a valiant decision to Shane Burgos. But, this is, I don't know if this is a step. This is definitely a step down from Burgos, but Alexander Hernandez is not in the class of the Galvin Tuckers and the Kyle Nelson and Spark Carlisle. I think he's in that level right above that. You know what I mean? Not even the best fighter, but like I said, just somebody who you kind of have to respect. Obviously they should be respecting everybody, but Alexander Hernandez does pose a big threat, with some of his knockout power. And Billy Q, I think this is a pretty even fight, even as the line shows. Nobody's really favored by much in this fight. It just comes down to how you see it going down. Does Alexander Hernandez get him out of there early, or does Billy Q drown him in the later rounds?
Yeah. How do you see it?
I think that Billy Q does end up drowning him in the later rounds, probably a second round, early third round finish. In this fight, I actually like the under, because even then it's just a little hedge. If Billy Q doesn't get him out of there, Alexander Hernandez can possibly get him out of there in the first round, and that would also get the 2.5 to get home. So I do like the under 2.5 in this fight.
Yeah, Billy Q does have a 75% finish rate, so you can see the unders playing here. And Hernandez's wins do come from KO or TKO too, so I could see that definitely happening. Let's move on to another fight we want to talk about here. Chris Curtis versus Joaquin Buckley. Buckley, let me get this right. He is the guy with the spinning KO back kick, right? That's what he's famous for? That's what he's been known for? Yeah. And he does carry power, 74% finish rate. Ben, let's look at the form of Chris Curtis here. Chris, the action man Curtis, 4-1, lost to Jack Hermansson. And Hermansson's another guy you could say kind of fringe, gatekeeper, mid-level of this weight class,
Yeah, Hermansson, we just saw lose in devastating fashion with a calf slicer TKO, to that one dude. But it's also a respectable loss. Jack Hermansson, when he can, keep his distance. Had he not gone to the ground this last fight, Hermansson probably cruises to a decision win. Mm-hmm. He's gotten pretty good at that stick and move, Hermansson. And for the most part, Chris Curtis likes to fight standing up. He's a stand-up fighter, likes to trade in the pocket. He's pretty comfortable in the pocket. Buckley, for the most part, has been a guy who has liked to stand and trade as well. However, I do see Chris Curtis having a weakness, obviously on the ground. He's done pretty well defending takedowns. See that win against Adolfo Vieira, who's strictly a Brazilian BJJ black belt, doesn't necessarily have the best, entries in the wrestling game, but usually finds a way to get guys to the ground. And Chris Curtis was able to, stuff the takedowns there. Good win over Brendan Allen as well. And even Hermansson, he was able to get up, when Hermansson was able to take him down. So I see this fight taking place standing up and in the pocket. I do like Chris Curtis. I think he's the more well-rounded, the more seasoned fighter. Joaquin Buckley, like you said, living off of that KO. You look at the names of the people that he's beat, and it's just nobody to really, you mentioned these 5 names. To some people might not even know one name on this list. So
I would beg to say they probably don't even know out of this is who was that backspin KO either. Facts. I mean, he's living off that one thing. I mean, really.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't understand him being favored. Especially with Curtis coming off that loss to Jack Hermansson in a fight that he expected to win. I do like Chris Curtis here at plus money. I think this is kind of like the Wonder Boy and the Trailblazer fight, Kevin Holland. I mean, I just think Chris Curtis is just naturally better in the stand-up, and I think that's where it's going to take place, and Chris Curtis eventually will end up getting the better of Joaquin Buckley.
Big age difference here too, 6 years, Curtis entering the later of his prime, while Buckley is just entering the athletic years of his prime. But I'm with you. I like Chris Curtis in this one for the upset. Now, Ben, I got a slide here for Raul El Nino Problema Rosas Jr. I don't even have a slide for the guy he's fighting, Jay Perrin. I've done some research on Jay Perrin. He has yet to win anything outside of a regional circuit. Losses in Bellator, losses in UFC. This guy, obviously, he's going to get a hand-picked treatment. You're going to look for the Sean O'Malley treatment where they're hand-picking fighters for him, the Paddy Pimblett stuff. It's going to be, how can we put the rocket on this kid? They obviously want to market him as much as they can, and I think they've given him an easy matchup. And the odds show at minus 240. I kind of like him to win by submission, though. That's probably what I'm going to go with if I'm going to play this fight. What are your thoughts on Raul Rosas, the new thing for the UFC?
Yeah, I mean, an 18-year-old, here making his UFC debut, comes off of that Dana White Contender Series where, I mean, he dominated in that fight, wasn't able to get the finish. I think a lot of people expected him to get the submission finish, kind of like how you're talking about, in this fight, he was transitioning really well. He just was never able to get that other guy out of there. So in this fight, I mean, to see him at minus 240, you know, on pay-per-view, pay-per-view card under the big lights, I mean, you kind of almost just want to fade him, bro, just because, you know, it's a really big moment for such a young kid, and he's fighting a grown man. Obviously, like you mentioned, P. Ryan or Perrin, whatever his name is, Perrin, he isn't the best guy, you know, isn't very good at defending takedowns, will probably get taken down at will in this fight. And it's just going to come down to whether, you know, Rosa can get him out of there, or if he struggles like he did in that Contender Series fight. But like you said, I mean, it's set up pretty well for him. This is a pretty big spot for him. You know, somebody who benefited from a lot of the cancellations like you were mentioning before we started breaking down the card. He definitely moved him up a couple of spots. He'll be, you know, fighting pay-per-view. Is he on the main card, the pay-per-view card, or is he?
Yeah, I believe he actually is on the main card. Let me just verify that. And he is on the prelims on ESPN Plus or ESPN2.
Okay, so I mean, on ESPN2, regardless, it'll be, you know, on free cable. It's a big spot for him.
Still a great spot.
It is in Contender Series. He may look to, you know, go in there and just get him out of there. I do like him in a parlay, just because, like, I agree with you. I feel like they're kind of feeding him, you know, a guy that will probably break in there.
Yeah, not a lot of college football going on this weekend, so you got to think that the lights and the eyes will be on this UFC card for this weekend as far as sports go.
For them to put it on ESPN2, yeah, normally on Saturdays, that's when football's on there. So for them to have it on ESPN2, like I said, a lot of people have ESPN2. Oh, the fights are on. All right, I'm tuning in.
Yeah. All right, well, let's move on. Here's where it starts to get fun for us. Bryce Mitchell, a dog, plus 110 versus Ilia Topuria, minus 140. Ben, let's get into who's been red hot. Well, both of them really, but let's start with Ilia Topuria. All in good form here, 5 in a row, all green, 12-0. Tell me what you think about these fights. The fight for me though, Ryan Hall. I don't know if you remember that. Ryan Hall kept just spamming the roll, yeah. And Topuria was having none of it. At that point is when he was on my radar. What do you think?
Yeah, and I was actually, you know, against that crowd that kind of hated on Ryan Hall's fight style. I kind of liked it just because of how much it pissed people off. But like you said, once he got matched up with Topuria, he had I think he knocked him out with hammer fist or something, didn't he?
He was like, go ahead and grab my ankle. I'm going to just smack you up while you do it.
It was bad. I mean, obviously when guys are digging for the legs and the knees, they're giving up their whole face because they're working so hard with both arms, you know, to lock a knee or an ankle. And Topuria just hit him with some hammer fists from hell, some shots from hell. Yeah. And I mean, he can be boring, but he's very timely. He's explosive. Almost reminds me somewhat of Nicolau, who we saw this past week. I don't know if Bryce Mitchell is going to go in, you know, as crazy as Matt Snell did. I think Bryce Mitchell, as dumb as he sounds, you know, whenever the guy opens his mouth, in the octagon, he's pretty smart about sticking to his game plan. I don't know if this is going to necessarily be another Ryan Hall type of fight, though. I think Bryce Mitchell is a little tougher and will be a little bit smarter the way that he, you know, tries to enter. I mean, essentially, though, I think that Topuria has a big speed advantage in this fight. I think he's got a big power advantage in this fight. I think he's just got to avoid the ground. And, I mean, like we saw against Ryan Hall, not the best, you know, takedown attempts, but he was able to avoid the ground at all costs.
All right. Well, moving over to Thug Nasty here, also in the green, 15-0. And we've kind of known him since the Dana White's, not the Contender Series, but the Ultimate Fighter is kind of when we started turning on to Bryce Thug Nasty Mitchell. And he has the bigger names on his list. He's got Touchy Philly, Andre Philly, and he has Edson Barboza. More household names as far as UFC goes. What do you think about his 5 wins? Obviously, we know where they come from. It's decision or ground, I mean, for him.
Yeah, like I said, man, tough. That fight against Edson Barboza, he was standing up with Edson for a while, you know, until he eventually took it to the ground. But he's definitely more tested, I think, than Camarada. But at the same time, like I said, I think the physical attributes is what's going to be the difference in this fight. It's a very evenly lined fight. I just don't believe, like you said, you know, his decision, submission. I don't believe that he's going to be able to control this fight. I think that, you know, he's going to be the one, you know, more or less reacting, maybe shooting some desperate takedowns if the stand-up exchanges aren't going his way. So I do like Thug Nasty a lot, although I feel like Topuria is a lot more calculated, throws a lot straighter punches, more explosive, stronger, younger. I mean, most things point for Topuria here, getting him at a pretty good price at -140. So I do like Topuria in this fight. And honestly, man, if Bryce Mitchell goes out there and he somehow muddies this fight up and wins some sort of nasty decision, I don't see him getting the submission. But if he can just win a nasty decision, all props to him. But I feel like you got to win this fight in style, because this is kind of, fringe of like contending and being thrown in those big name fights. Got to do something sort of like what Nicolau did and, just turn somebody's lights out or get some sort of submission.
Well, you would have to think, though, because of the way the division's set up and what Volkanovski's done in the featherweight division, Bryce Mitchell would be a name that gets thrown into the hat with the win, just based on Volk cleaning out that division, and he hasn't seen Bryce Mitchell yet.
Yeah, but like I said, I don't think that a decision would do it. I think that it's got to be something, decisive. He catches Topuria in something. Like I said, I think that Topuria is going to win, and I think that he has a really good shot at getting Bryce Mitchell out of there. So my pick for this fight, I'm going to go with Topuria. I'm just going to stick to the -140.
All right. You know what? I'm going to be with you on this line as well. I do see what you say about Topuria being, a better athletic specimen, but then I go back to the Barboza fight where Barboza was outclassing him as far as athletic. And
but that's at
Bryce
the
Mitchell
end of
kind of
his
found a
career.
way.
This is a 25-year-old.
And that is going to be the difference. That is going to be the difference. Where Barboza was a little bit older and the tools on the ground aren't the same. I think Topuria, although we've seen him standing for the most part, is not that far behind Bryce Mitchell on the ground, in my opinion, as far as the wrestling goes. The submission, that might be something different. But
do you think that the fight takes place on the ground?
No, I think Topuria is going to want to keep it standing because that's where he's going to win the battle. I think Bryce Mitchell is going to shoot, and I think that's where Topuria is going to take care of it and find a way to knock him on a shoot. I kind of see something like a knee coming in, something like that.
Okay, let's go.
I'm with Topuria.
Someone's O has to go.
Someone's O is going Saturday, man.
Yeah.
All right, and talking about going away Saturday, unfortunately, Darren Till, I think this is it for him, man. I think this is it for him in the UFC. He's fighting Dricus du Plessis, if I said that right. And let's look at Darren Till. Let's see why I'm saying that. Man, it's just coming up red. Tyron Woodley, granted, is for the chip. George Masvidal knocked out ugly in his hometown, home state, home country. Got to win against a small Kelvin Gastelum.
Yeah,
I mean, he's small for that division.
Kelvin Gastelum,
yeah. Then he goes and fights a prime Robert Whittaker decision. That's not when you lose to Robert Whittaker by decision, it's not that bad because of how good Robert Whittaker is. Derek Brunson, he loses by submission. I mean, it just looks like he's out of his league at middleweight. I think the welter is the way to go, but obviously that cuts a little too hard for him. And I think this is going to be another loss for him here.
Yeah, I mean, Darren Till, it seems like now at least we're not seeing, one of these top names, one of these Masvidals, Gaslams, Whittakers, usually the top five. He'd probably want to run that one back against Tyron Woodley now, right? Yeah. Now would be a good time to get it back. But yeah, bro, it kind of, I mean, it seems like his place in the UFC, I mean, he does have some fans, he's friends with Chimanet, or, with some of these guys, but him as far as a fighter, we haven't really seen him evolve much at all. He's just never landed more than 49 significant strikes in a UFC fight, ever. 49. He's never landed 50 significant strikes. He's too hesitant. He doesn't throw enough. It's kind of like Woodley. It's the Woodley effect. He's just looking for that one shot, but then he gets outworked. Duplessis is going to be coming at him, I think, pretty hard from all angles. Pause. But he's a crazy guy. He does get hit a lot. Just comes down to, can Darren Till find that one shot to put him out? He's not going to throw very many. Duplessis, we've seen, he's here. He's on a roll. He's streaking. This is why they're giving him this, big name in Darren Till, at least a known name, maybe to either be a stepping stone and, kind of bump him up into the mainstream to, if he makes an example out of Darren Till. But this is a pretty big opportunity for this dude. And he wins by KO. He usually gets the other guy out of there. So, like I said, he's a wild man. He's going to keep coming at Darren Till, keep Till busy. It's just going to come down to, can Till find that one shot to put him out?
Yeah. So the way I see it here, man, it's going to be TKO, Dricus du Plessis. How are you seeing this money line decision? Where's your heart here on this one?
Yeah, I mean, you see the 95% finish rate. So, I mean, if you would take du Plessis, it would just be dumb not to take him by finish. But I'm just going to play it safe. Darren Till is kind of tough. I'll just go with the money line. It is a fight. I don't mind laying, a little under 2-1 odds in a UFC fight. We've seen Darren Till. His best days are definitely behind him. Think he's a guy that got rushed, maybe not hand-picked fights. He's a guy that definitely got rushed into that title shot against Woodley and got shown a big lesson in that fight. Hasn't been able to recover since. So give me Dricus du Plessis minus 180.
All right, moving on to another hand-picked, put the rocket on him. And especially after the podcast that came out this week, Dana White's favorite boy here,
Whose
Paddy
podcast
Pimblett.
was that, though?
That was Paddy Pimblett's podcast.
Okay.
And you got the CEO, the boss, coming on your podcast. I mean, you're courting some favor, definitely, right? Like that's not happening for anybody's podcast.
Yeah, and then when you say what you say on there, it's like, hey, even more. Oh, really, Paddy? I mean, I liked you, man, but now I love you.
That's
We're
exactly
gonna
what
shit
that
on
was.
Ariel Helwani? All right.
Paddy Pimblett minus 260 versus Jared Gordon. A little news broke out this week. These guys are pretty familiar with each other. They've seen each other as sparring partners, and Paddy said, hey guys, you know what? I've tapped this guy twice already. Expect me to tap him again. Ben, let's get into Paddy's form. As you know, handpicked 19-3. The last 5 we saw him versus the Monkey King, Jordan Levitt. What stood out for the last 5 fights for Paddy Pimblett for you?
I mean, he's gotten hit with some shots. I think in that Vargas fight, he got hit with a pretty big shot. Got taken down, was able to recover and get the sub. He's a tough guy, bro. I mean, he's that hooligan type, English soccer lover. They're tough dudes. They're tough dudes. They love fighting.
Scouser.
Yeah, he's a scouser. And I don't think he's gonna be a wanker this fight. I mean, there's definitely gonna be a point where Paddy Pimblett isn't the best fighter. Like Justin said, it's a lot of hand-picked fights. And he's looking like a scouser, but at some point, he's gonna look like a wanker, a big wanker. And once he gets that name, that big name, we're going to fade him. But I don't think this is the spot. I don't know if I believe the fact that he's necessarily tapped out Jared Gordon twice. But I do think that he is better. He's more athletic. Gordon's older. Sure, he's tough. He could take a beating. But this is kind of that fight where they just give you that vet who's more or less a grinder, isn't really going to get you out of there. Might put you through some adversity. But again, isn't going to get you out of there, so you're going to have a shot to fight back. So yeah. I think this is a good fight for Paddy. I don't necessarily agree with the odds. I think they are a little steep for as tough as Gordon is and as much of a vet as he is, but I do see Paddy Pimblett winning.
Absolutely. And you can see here, like you mentioned, finish rate for Gordon, 43%. This is not a guy that's going to flash, even though that's his nickname, Flash Gordon. That's not happening. A flash KO to Pimblett is not happening. That's why he was chosen for Pimblett. And I think Pimblett will continue to garner these favorable opponents for him as they continue to strap the rocket to him, because they do need someone in that European market that has a name. What they were hoping with Till, and that's why they rushed him to superstardom right away. They're going to try to get out of Pimblett.
What happened to Molly Meatball will happen to Pimblett eventually. Just
eventually
kind of get the right fighter. And Molly Meatball is already, fighting in ranked fighters. Paddy Pimblett has yet to fight a ranked fighter.
Yeah. All right, main event time. Here's a guy, Magomed Ankalaev, a guy that I was talking about a few UFC podcasts ago, saying, hey, he's deserved a title shot already. You said, hey, not yet. He's not ready. Well, he's going to get the title, and it's by hook, and it's by crook, and it's by cancellation. He's going to be the benefactor of this. And it's against a former title holder in this division, Jan Blachowicz. And Ankalaev is coming in at minus 290 favorite, absolutely in form, can do it through submission, can do it through the stand-up. He's a well-rounded fighter. Let's talk about his last 5 fights, and it's kind of somewhat the who's who of the light heavyweight division. You got Volkan Ozdemir, you got Thiago Santos, Anthony Smith. Granted, all these guys do come after they fought John Jones or DC, but unfortunately, that's the shape of the light heavyweight division. That these are the names of the who's who's in the light heavyweight right now.
Come on, cuz.
It is what it is. They're all ranked fighters. I mean, that's the shape of the light heavyweight division. It's been a UFC's worst division since John Jones has left. I mean, really, it's reality.
I mean, yeah, you would like to see maybe like a fight, see maybe like a Sweet Dreams Hill. Isn't he in this division?
He's in this division, and I think he should be getting a shot next after he wins next. But he has a fight booked, though.
Okay.
Jamal Hill, yeah.
So, I mean, like I told you, I didn't think that Ankalaev was ready. I didn't think that he was ready. But that was if he was going to be fighting, the champ Glover.
Yeah.
Or even, Jiri, the other champ. He's not fighting the champ or the number 1 contender. He's fighting Jan Blachowicz, a guy who we saw, did he win the belt against Izzy, or was that his one defense?
That's his one title defense against Izzy, because he is a failed middleweight that moved up to light heavyweight that got the belt over here.
So nothing crazy impressive. I mean, if he finds that Polish power, if he connects with that Polish power, he can get somebody out of there. But he's never even been a guy that really knocks people out. He fights hard. I mean, this is a winnable fight just because Ankalaev is the younger guy. He's a hard worker. As you see with that beard, I mean, the Dagestanis, they've had a run this year. Adding another belt right here makes a lot of sense. He's obviously the big odds-on favorite to win this fight. Like you said, by crook or shook, whatever else you were rhyming with that word. He's gonna get the interim championship. And then I don't know how they're going to figure out the other thing, and if the other dudes are going to fight and then fight him, or I don't know how it's going to work. But I think it's stupid that they're fighting for an interim belt. I think they just had to do it because obviously it's a pay-per-view, and it's already a pretty watered-down pay-per-view from what they had expected. So you got to have a title fight on here. Neither guy, I feel, is deserving of the title shot right now. I think for sure it had to be a rematch of the other two. Glover saying, I don't want to take the fight on short notice, especially for an opponent I've never trained for. So that's hinting that they were going to give him Ankalaev. They weren't going to give Jan Blachowicz the title fight. They were going to give it to Ankalaev. Glover didn't want to take it on 2-3 days notice, whatever it was, or a week or 2 days notice. So, I mean, and you can't blame the guy, right? If you lose, you're not going to – this is your last shot if you're a Glover Teixeira at the belt. You can't blame him. I'm just wanting a full camp to fight whoever it is. If they just make him fight the winner of this because Yuri's out longer, I'm sure that he would do it, but he would just like to fight, obviously Ankalaev with a full camp, knowing he's fighting him. His last shot at a title, obviously at like 42, 43 years old. So, yeah, don't like the circumstances. I hope this fight is good. I do like your boy Ankalaev to, get another title for the Daggies. And end up just bullying Jan Blachowicz.
Yeah. Here I'm going to take Ankalaev, of course. This kind of guy I've been pulling for. I think we're going to see a decision win. I think we're going to go all 5 rounds, and it's going to be just outclassed Ankalaev. I don't know, other than maybe the one shot that Blachowicz has, the answers he has for Ankalaev, I don't see them there. I think he's more well-rounded. And we're seeing Blachowicz, who's a lot older. I mean, you're talking about Ankalaev. That's a 9-year difference. Ankalaev's just entering that prime. I have to go to Daggy here, man.
Yeah, so I mean, let's get to some of the plays, but some of the plays that we're gonna have for the weekend over whatever we talked about. So we talked about Rosas and getting spoon-fed. So we're gonna parlay Rosas with Ankalaev in the main event. We get money line -115. Nice little two-person parlay at about even money. Then we're gonna go with Chris Curtis, the action man. Taking a dog here, had some good outcomes last week.
Last week, and plus money.
Yeah, a lot of Stephen Thompson at +155. We were on somebody else at plus money as well, and I think even the under was at plus money that we had. So, Chris Curtis, the action man. Let's get a win here against Buckley, who's still hanging around on his high horse due to that big knockout win. I do think Chris Curtis can get a decision win or even a knockout win in the second or third round. So give me Chris Curtis at dog odds. And then Dricus du Plessis. I thought about parlaying him, but I didn't want to, add too much to the parlay and give it, have something outrageous need to happen for it to hit. So I'm just going to lay it with du Plessis at minus 180.
There's a little juice.
It is a little bit of juice, but like I said, I feel like he has way more weapons to attack Darren Till with. He's a way fresher fighter. Darren Till hasn't been knocked out. I don't want to compare him to Dominic Reyes or any of those guys, but he just seems like he's on his way out. He doesn't seem like he has much fight left in him or that he really wants it. So give me du Plessis here, minus 180. A little weary of laying that price for a guy who we're about to find out if he's for real or not with this fight, I believe. Mm-hmm. And then Hernandez and Quarantillo. Like I said, it could either be Hernandez early or Quarantillo drowning him in the second, early third round. I like the under 2.5 here. These are two, lighter, smaller guys that like to get after it. So give me the under 2.5 at minus 110. 4 plays this week.
All right. And I got a little parlay I've cooked up for you guys. It's Raul Rosas Jr. money line minus 245. I got Rosenstrike by KO or TKO minus 120. He fights Dawkins, and I don't think Dawkins is a real heavyweight. I believe he belongs at light heavy, but he's just, too bloated and doesn't make the weight. And we got Paddy Pimblett, another guy who's spoon-fed by Dana White to make sure they get the European market going at minus 245. You play all those three, you come out with plus 260 on the odd line. So those are my parlays. And I got to give you a little shout-out, Ben. 3-0 last week with the picks. 2 of them in plus money, man. That's pretty good.
Yeah, right. As soon as we won 2 of them, we got to the main event and we were already, in the green for sure because we were on another dog in the main event. And man, bro, I wish I would have laid everything had I known that, Holland and Wonder Boy had a gentleman's agreement that
Not
they were going to keep it standing. Like, oh my God, that line should have been Wonder Boy minus 300 if everybody knew about that agreement. They kept that more hush hush than a James Krause corner, bro. I mean, come on now.
Hey, man, and the last thing I want to give you props was calling the RDA Barberina. I wanted the line a little bit less, but you were correct. That line could have been minus 1,000, and it would have been correct.
Oh, yeah, that's Dana White saying, hey, RDA, you've been a great company guy your whole career, man. Let's get you back on track, get you a win. Maybe set up, he did a hell of a job after that fight with his call-out. I mean, we've heard a lot of people call out Conor McGregor, but this already has some burn to it. It's got some unfinished business. It was a fight that was supposed to happen. And so it's a good comeback fight for Conor, bro.
I guess we haven't really seen the news from Dana's mouth yet.
No.
Well, the Conor guy has a fighter lined up sort of already for when he comes back, who they would like to see him go with. So and it's not RDA.
Ferguson. All right.
No, it's Chandler.
I mean, I'm sure that's a fight that Conor would like because it's
a winnable fight for him.
Yeah, it's gonna be stand and bang. But man, talk about giving Chandler the holy grail of like he came over to the UFC and he just straight up hooking him up with, hey, here, fight all the best fucking dudes.
You can't deny him when he's done what he's done and try to be exciting. He's abandoned a lot of the wrestling for let's just try to make the most exciting thing happen. And that sells. I mean, at the end of the day, you can make highlight reels for that. That's the thing that sells. From a business perspective, I get it.
Yeah. I don't know if that's the best fight for Conor.
What's the best fight for him? What do you think?
Like
I don't
Ferguson?
think RDA is. Ferguson would be. Oh, absolutely. It's like the Cerrone thing all over. A shoulder knockout will do it at this point.
Oh, nah,
that's where he's at, my brother. That's where he's at. That's where he's at.
And the podcast, bro.
All right.
We got something to talk about off air and this podcast.
Well, that's it for WTBS MMA Tap Hour UFC 282. Something big in the books for next week. The MMA Tap Hour 2022 awards. We had so much fun with 2021 awards. We're going to do 22 round 2. All right, guys. Peace.